Have you ever just looked at someone who can study for hours, totally zoned in, and wondered, how do they do that? While the rest of us are fighting to stay focused for 5 minutes. Well, today we're going to dive into a pretty powerful, science-backed method that completely flips the script on motivation. It's all about learning how to get addicted to the process of learning itself. So let's just kick things off with a statement that might challenge everything you thought you knew about being a high achiever. The world's top performers, we're talking future surgeons, chess grandmasters, they are not running on some magical, endless supply of motivation. No way. They're playing a completely different game. That's the secret right there. They figured out how to hack their own brain chemistry. They build a system that actually makes their brain crave the act of studying. And the key to this whole thing, the master key, is understanding one powerful little molecule, dopamine. But first things first, we have got to bust a huge myth that most of us have been told our entire lives. Because as it turns out, the way we think about dopamine and motivation itself is probably all wrong. Okay. Here is the core misunderstanding. Most of us think dopamine is the pleasure chemical, the good feeling you get after you get the prize. But that's not quite right. Research from places like Stanford shows that dopamine is actually released in anticipation of a reward. It's the chemical of wanting, of seeking. It's the thrill of the hunt, not the prize itself. And that tiny difference, well, it changes everything. So, this brings us to the absolute heart of this entire brain hack. If dopamine is really all about anticipation and seeking, then what is it that our brains are truly deeply craving? Look, your brain is not designed to get a rush from staring at a dry textbook. Let's be honest. It's wired to get a kick out of the feeling of moving forward, of making progress. Once you really get that, you can stop trying to force yourself to like studying, and instead you can just focus on giving your brain the one thing it really wants. A constant, steady diet of progress. So how do we actually do that? Well, we use a super simple, repeatable 4-step cycle. We're going to call it the progress loop. This is the real, actionable method that top performers use to build that elite level focus. Step 1, and this is maybe the most important, you have to shrink the goal. The pros don't sit down thinking, okay, time to study for 3 hours. That's way too big, it's intimidating. Instead, they make the starting line laughably easy. They tell themselves, I'm just going to solve one problem, or I'm going to read just one single page. This is all about the science of small wins. According to the Behavioral Neuroscience Journal, when you complete these tiny little tasks, your brain gets a small hit of dopamine. It's just enough to make your brain go, hey, that felt pretty good. Let's do another one. It's how you build momentum from scratch. Okay, so that small win gives you a little spark of momentum. Step 2 is all about making that momentum visible. As soon as you finish that tiny task, you need to give your brain a clear, physical sign that you did something. And this can be incredibly simple. We're talking about the physical act of checking a box or drawing a line through an item on a to-do list. You could even just slide a paperclip from one pile to another. That physical action, it cements the win in your brain and it taps into a really powerful psychological trigger. And that trigger is called the Zeigarnik effect. You know that feeling when a TV show ends on a massive cliffhanger? Your brain hates that open loop. It needs to know what happens next. Well, when you see a to-do list with just one thing checked off, your brain feels that same mental pull. It wants to keep going. It wants to close the loop. All right, step 3 is a clever little timing hack that kind of flips rewards on their head. Most of us think, I'll reward myself after I finish. But remember what we just learned about dopamine? It's all about the anticipation. So the key is to time that dopamine hit perfectly. Before you even start that first tiny problem, tell yourself what the reward will be later. Picture that cup of coffee you're going to have or that video you're going to watch. Research shows that just the act of looking forward to the reward can release more dopamine than actually getting it. You're basically priming the pump for focus. Now, this last step, this one is going to feel weird, I promise, but it is what separates the pros from the amateurs. The secret to staying consistent isn't grinding until you're totally exhausted. It's stopping while you're still winning. This uses something called the peak end rule. See, our memory of an experience isn't very accurate. We mostly just remember the most intense moment, the peak, and how it ended. So if you stop your study session when you're still in the groove, feeling good, making progress, you remember the whole thing as a positive experience. And that makes starting again tomorrow 1,000 times easier. So let's put it all together. That's the progress loop. Number 1, you shrink the goal so it's impossible not to start. 2, you use a visible trigger to make your progress feel real. 3, you time your dopamine by thinking about the reward before you start. And 4, you stop at the peak so you're actually excited to come back tomorrow. Now, before you run off and try this, there is one huge, massive trap that can completely wreck this entire system. And it's something that we all fall for, pretty much every single day. The problem is competition. Things like scrolling social media, they are like a dopamine slot machine for your brain. Huge, unpredictable hits. When you try to sit down and study after that, the small, earned dopamine you get from making progress, it just can't compete. Your brain feels bored. It's like bringing a candle to a bonfire. So you absolutely have to protect your focus before you start. So what's the big picture here? What's the ultimate goal? This isn't just a clever trick to use once. This is a system for literally rewiring the habits in your brain over time. Every single time you run through this 4-step loop, you are strengthening the neural pathways for focus. You're carving a new groove in your brain. These controlled dopamine loops are exactly how addictive habits are built. You're not just studying, you are training your brain to make focus the default automatic setting. And look, you don't have to take my word for it. Just try it. I'm not asking for a month, not even a week. Just give this method an honest try for 3 days. That's it. If you feel even a tiny bit less resistance to starting, that feeling, that's your brain beginning to rewire itself. So let's make this real. The process starts right now with step 1. Don't think about the whole chapter. Don't even think about the whole page. What is the one single, tiny problem you are going to solve to kickstart your progress loop right now?